"You're being let go at the end of the month," my boss, Harold, said casually, as though delivering a forgettable memo about office supplies. I stared at him across his walnut desk, every muscle in my body tensing. It was Friday afternoon, the day after the company's quarterly meeting, usually a time to breathe and plan new strategies. Instead, I found myself fighting to maintain composure. "Let go," I echoed, my throat tight. "But why?" My voice sounded calmer than I felt. In my 4 years at Greendale Innovations, I'd never once been reprimanded. By all accounts, I'd done good work, leading successful product campaigns, forging key partnerships. Harold leaned forward with a paternal sigh. "Relax, it's not personal. We just want to keep things in the family, so to speak. My son, James, is coming aboard as the new marketing director." Blood pounded in my ears. In the family, James was fresh out of business school. He hadn't even interned here. He certainly didn't have the experience I'd built over nearly half a decade. But Harold apparently saw it differently. "How is that fair?" I managed, pulse racing. "No disrespect, but James has zero track record. He's never run a campaign. I've been." I know, Harold interrupted with the wave of a hand. "You've done fine. But the board's decided it's time for new blood. And James, well, he's got some innovative ideas." His lips twitched in a forced smile. "We'll give you a generous severance. Your final day's the 31st. I sat there, stunned, as he pushed a stack of paperwork across the desk. Severance agreement. Non-compete clause. Non-disclosure. The standard protocol for letting someone go. My mind reeled with the injustice. I'd bled for this company, pulling late nights to salvage failing projects, saving them from crisis more than once. And the thanks I got. A swift boot out the door so Harold could nepotize his son into my job. Swallowing the hurt, I managed to keep my dignity. "I see," I said, tucking the documents under my arm. "Thank you for the heads up." Then, without another word, I left his office, heart hammering, anger mixing with disbelief. That weekend, I floated in a haze, trying to figure out my next move. Friends and family told me to lawyer up, or at least demand more compensation. But I knew lawsuits rarely ended well, especially against an established mid-sized firm with good attorneys. Besides, the contract I'd signed upon joining was pretty ironclad. The severance was decent, but not life-changing. And the non-compete clause stated I couldn't work for any direct competitor in the region for 12 months. That meant my entire skill set in marketing for local tech businesses was basically locked behind a no-go zone for a year. Great. I rummaged through old emails, half searching for anything that might indicate wrongful termination. But Harold's reason was cunningly vague. There was no mention of performance issues, just restructuring. Nepotism, basically. But nepotism, while ethically questionable, isn't always illegal. Monday morning, I dragged myself back into the office, forcing a polite smile at colleagues who offered sympathetic looks. Word traveled fast, and half the staff seemed outraged. "They can't just replace you with that kid," my coworker, Amy, whispered at the water cooler. "He's never even worked a day in corporate marketing." I just shrugged, powerless to argue. Then, as I was sorting through emails, James strolled in, Harold's son, all bright-eyed and sporting a brand-new suit. He gave me a half-nod. "Hey, I'm taking over your desk next week," he said, tapping the cubicle wall. "Dad said you'll be finishing up soon. Want to show me the ropes?" I clenched my jaw. The audacity. But I forced a cordial tone. "Sure, I can brief you on our current campaigns." Because that's how business etiquette works, apparently. You train your replacement, even if he's a nepotistic newbie. James didn't even have the courtesy to look sheepish. "Awesome. Let's do it tomorrow. I'm swamped with lunch plans today." He flicked imaginary dust off his suit jacket and strolled off. I stared at his retreating figure, marveling at how carefree he seemed. My chest burned with resentment, but I reminded myself to keep calm. The severance only paid out if I left quietly, no fuss. That night, I reread my contract, scouring every line, searching for some glimmer of hope. My eyes skimmed the legal jargon about intellectual property, confidentiality, severance conditions, assignment of tasks. Then something caught my eye, a single paragraph about profit-sharing eligibility. It stated that if any employee met certain performance metrics and had been with the company for at least 4 years, they'd qualify for a share of profits in the subsequent quarter, provided they remained employed through the distribution date. A spark flickered. I'd definitely met those performance metrics. In fact, I'd led the campaign that boosted our quarterly revenue by a significant margin. The distribution date for profit shares was set for the end of next quarter, which was about 2 months away. But Harold was letting me go at the end of this month, well before the distribution. That meant, under normal circumstances, I'd lose out on the profit share I'd already earned. However, the clause said provided they remain employed through the distribution date or are terminated without cause prior to said date. My pulse jumped. Terminated without cause prior to said date. That meant if I didn't voluntarily resign, and I was let go for no fault of my own, the company might still be obligated to pay me that profit share, unless the severance agreement overrode it. I rummaged for the severance papers. Sure enough, they mentioned final pay but suspiciously omitted any reference to the profit share clause. The language was murky, almost like they wanted me to forget about it. Was this a loophole? Possibly. If the original contract guaranteed me a share of the profits for that successful quarter, they might owe me a decent chunk of money, maybe more than the severance. My mind whirled. I should talk to a lawyer. The next day, I visited an employment attorney downtown, a no-nonsense woman named Danielle. She scanned the contract, raised an eyebrow, and said, "You might have a claim. They can't deny you the profit share if you were terminated without cause and you met the metrics. The severance agreement tries to bypass that, but it's not necessarily bulletproof." Relief mingled with excitement. "So I can push them on this?" She nodded. "Absolutely. But I'd do it carefully. If they sense a threat, they might rescind your severance or make your life miserable. You have a window. They want you gone quietly, so they might cut a deal if you stand firm." So that's exactly what I decided to do. The following morning, I marched into Harold's office. He looked up from his computer, eyebrows knitted. "Something I can help you with?" he asked coolly. I shut the door. Yes, I was reviewing my contract, and I noticed a clause about profit sharing. "I want to confirm that you'll honor it for me this quarter." His face hardened. "You're leaving at month's end. Profit sharing is for employees who stick around." I kept my tone even, heart pounding. "The contract says if I'm terminated without cause, I'm entitled to the share. And based on your own metrics, I qualify. We had a record quarter. I led that record quarter. So by the distribution date, I should get my portion." "Right." His jaw tightened. "Don't get your hopes up. That's not how we interpret it. The severance is your final compensation." I exhaled slowly. "But that's not what the contract states. If you want to disregard the contract, we can let lawyers sort it out, I guess." I gave a small shrug, feigning nonchalance. Inside, my nerves thrummed. "But I'd prefer we handle it amicably. I contributed significantly to that profit. I just want what's fair." Harold stared at me, eyes cold. "I see. Let me consult with legal. Come back tomorrow." I spun on my heel, feeling a shaky sense of victory. His rattled, I thought. Good. The next day, he summoned me back. This time, James was there too, leaning against the wall with a smirk. Harold folded his hands on the desk. "We've reviewed the matter. Our official stance is that you forfeit profit sharing upon departure. The severance stands as is." James chimed in. "Yeah, you're not part of the future of this company, so it wouldn't make sense for you to get profits now." I remained calm, though anger simmered. "The contract says otherwise," I repeated. "You can spin it how you want, but I have an attorney who believes I have a strong case. If you want to risk a legal battle over this, that's your choice. But the publicity won't be great. Imagine the staff morale if they see you refusing to pay earned profit shares." James's smirk twitched. Harold's gaze flicked to him, then back to me. "All right, how about this?" Harold said in a measured tone. "We'll pay you half of what your share would be. And we call it a day. No lawyers, no fuss." I exhaled, scanning his expression. He thought he could cut me a short deal. But I wasn't about to cede that easily. "The contract entitles me to the full amount. Let's not do this back and forth. If you want me out quietly, pay me the entire share. That's the only fair resolution." A tense silence fell. James fiddled with a pen, avoiding my gaze. Finally, Harold said, "Fine. Full share. You sign an updated severance agreement releasing all claims, and we finalize your last day as planned." "Understood." My heart soared. "Understood. Have legal draft it, and I'll consider it." I rose to leave, feeling the corners of my mouth tug into a small, triumphant smile. That evening, I reconnected with Danielle, the attorney, who reviewed the new severance. The profit share was spelled out, ensuring I'd receive the distribution check in the next quarter. Looks good, she concluded. They are giving you what you wanted. Just be sure to keep all these documents for your records. The next morning, I signed the agreement, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. I'd stood up for myself and found the loophole that guaranteed me a decent chunk of money, probably more than James's starting salary. The last few weeks at the company were awkward. James hovered around, trying to glean everything from me about ongoing campaigns, while Harold mostly avoided me. But I maintained professional courtesy, handing over projects with a neutral smile. The staff, at least, seemed quietly supportive, giving me nods of respect. Some even whispered how they thought it was unfair that I was leaving but took solace that I'd gotten some comeuppance. On my final day, Harold handed me a goodbye card from the team. "Good luck," was all he muttered. I nodded, forcing politeness, then headed to the break room for a small farewell gathering. Amy gave me a warm hug, others patted me on the back, praising my work ethic. I felt a surge of gratitude for these colleagues I'd grown to care about. Walking out of the building for the last time, I paused in the lobby, gazing at the big Greendale Innovations logo. For years of my life, lots of sweat, some tears, definitely frustration. But I'd grown from it, and at least I wouldn't walk away empty-handed. A few months later, the check arrived. It was a hefty sum, courtesy of that record quarter. A wry grin spread across my face as I pictured Harold's scowl while signing it. Meanwhile, James was presumably bungling campaigns, still learning the ropes while overshadowed by nepotistic baggage. I'd moved on to a new opportunity, one outside the non-compete radius, where I felt valued and unbound by favoritism. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't sabotage or a scorched earth fight. It's finding that one line in the contract that ensures you get your due. And, ironically, that little paragraph about profit sharing was my golden ticket. They might have replaced me with the boss's son, but they couldn't swindle me out of the success I helped create. The experience taught me that reading the fine print is essential. People like Harold might assume you'll just accept the short end of the stick. But armed with a good lawyer and a watchful eye, there's often a way to stand up for yourself. So in the end, I got a final paycheck that recognized my contributions and walked away with my head held high, leaving the nepotism behind. As for Harold and James, last I heard, the new marketing campaigns floundered, morale dipped, and the board wasn't pleased. Maybe nepotism gets you a seat at the table, but it sure doesn't guarantee you can keep it. Meanwhile, I had a fresh start, some extra cash in my account, and a sense of quiet satisfaction that I'd used their own contract to claim what was rightfully mine.